Rest. There comes a point in life where you realize that not every opinion deserves your attention, not every accusation deserves your response, and not every doubt deserves your explanation. Yet most people spend their lives doing exactly that, responding to criticism, justifying their actions, and trying to prove their worth to others. And in the process, they lose something far more valuable than approval. They lose their peace, their focus, and their power. The truth is simple but difficult to accept. The more you try to prove yourself to others, the less powerful you become. Because when you constantly feel the need to explain who you are unconsciously giving others the authority to define you. You are placing your identity in their hands, waiting for validation, waiting for approval, waiting to be understood. And that is a dangerous place to be. Strong people don't waste their energy explaining themselves to those who are committed to misunderstanding them. They don't feel the need to respond to every comment, every criticism, every negative opinion. Not because they have nothing to say, but because they understand something deeper. They understand that not every situation requires a reaction. And sometimes silence is the strongest response you can give. Most arguments are not about truth, they are about ego. Two people trying to be right, trying to win, trying to defend their position. But even if you win the argument, what do you really gain? Temporary satisfaction, a sense of superiority, and what do you lose? Time, energy, peace of mind, rest. And sometimes even relationships. When you choose not to respond, you are not being weak, you are being disciplined, you are choosing control over impulse, because reacting is easy. Anyone can react, anyone can get angry, defend themselves, or argue. But staying silent, staying calm, and walking away, that requires strength. Never respond does not mean you ignore everything in life. It means you become selective. You choose what deserves your attention and what does not. You understand that your energy is limited, and you refuse to waste it on things that do not contribute to your growth. Because every time you engage in negativity, you are feeding it. And what you feed grows. Never justify is even more powerful. Most people feel the need to explain every decision they make. Why they chose a certain path, why they said no, why they are doing something different. But the truth is, you don't owe anyone an explanation for living your life according to your values. The moment you start justifying your choices, you open the door for judgment, cynicism, and unnecessary opinions. People who are secure in themselves don't feel the need to justify their actions. They know who they are. They know what they want, and they move with clarity. They understand that not everyone will agree with them, and that's okay, because their confidence does not come from external approval, it comes from internal certainty. And then comes the hardest part: never prove. Because deep down, most people want to be recognized. They want to show others that they are capable, successful, worthy. They want to prove the doubters wrong. They want to show the world what they can do. And while ambition is not wrong, the need to prove something to others can become a trap. When you act to prove something, your actions are no longer truly yours. They are driven by external expectations. You are not chasing your purpose, you are chasing validation. And that will never satisfy you. Because no matter how much you achieve, there will always be someone who doubts you, someone who criticizes you, someone who doesn't understand you. True power comes when you stop trying to prove anything to anyone, when you no longer feel the need to impress, to convince, or to justify, when your actions are aligned with your values, not with other people's opinions. That's when you become free. There is a different kind of confidence that comes from this mindset. It's not loud, it doesn't seek attention, it doesn't need validation, it's quiet, strong, and unshakable. It comes from knowing who you are and standing by it regardless of what others think. And once you reach that level, something changes. You stop reacting to everything. You stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. You stop trying to prove your worth. And in that silence, in that control, in that clarity, you gain something far more powerful than approval. You gain control over your life. Once you begin to understand this mindset, you start to notice how much energy you have been wasting without even realizing it. Every argument you entered, every time you tried to explain yourself to someone who didn't truly care to understand, every moment you spent trying to prove your worth, it all drained you. Not physically, but mentally and emotionally. And that kind of exhaustion is dangerous because it slowly weakens your focus, your confidence, and your direction in life. Most people don't realize that attention is one of their most valuable assets. Where your attention goes, your energy follows. And where your energy goes, your life begins to shape itself. So when you constantly give your attention to negativity, to arguments, to people who doubt you or misunderstand you, you are unknowingly shaping a life filled with distraction and frustration. You are building a reality where your focus is not on growth, but on reaction. This is why never respond is not just about silence, it is about control. It is about deciding that not everything deserves your time or your mental space. Because the moment you respond emotionally, you give power to the situation. You allow it to affect your mood, your thoughts, and sometimes even your actions. But when you choose not to respond, you break that chain. You protect your mind from unnecessary noise. There is a common trap that people fall into. They believe that if they don't respond, they are losing. They think silence means weakness. They think walking away means they have no answer. But the reality is the opposite. Silence is often a sign of strength. It shows that you are in control of yourself. It shows that you are not easily triggered. And most importantly, it shows that you value your peace more than proving a point. The same goes for justification. Think about how often people feel the need to explain themselves, why they made a decision, why they chose a certain path, why they said no to something. And many times they are not explaining to be understood. They are explaining to be accepted. They are seeking approval without even realizing it. And that creates a cycle where their confidence becomes dependent on other people's opinions. But the truth is, no matter how much you explain yourself, not everyone will understand you. Not everyone will agree with you. Some people will judge you no matter what you say. Some people will misunderstand you on purpose. And when you keep trying to justify yourself to these people, you are wasting your energy energy on something that will never give you the result you want. When you stop justifying, you step into a new level of confidence. You make decisions because they are right for you, not because they will be accepted by others. You say no without guilt. You choose your path without needing validation. And that kind of independence is powerful because it allows you to move forward without being held back by other people's opinions. Never prove takes this even deeper, because the need to prove yourself often comes from insecurity. It comes from a place where you feel like you are not enough unless others recognize it. So you push yourself not just for growth, but to show others that you are capable. You work hard, but part of that effort is driven by the desire to silence doubters. And while that might give you temporary motivation, it also creates pressure, because now your success is tied to other people's expectations. You are not just working for yourself, you are working to prove something. And that can become exhausting, because no matter how much you achieve, the need to prove never fully goes away unless you address it from within. Real freedom comes when you stop trying to prove anything. When your actions are no longer about showing others what you can do, but about becoming who you want to be. When your goals are not driven by ego, but by purpose. And when your success is not measured by validation, but by fulfillment. There is a quiet power in this mindset. A power that doesn't need to be announced, a power that doesn't seek attention. It's the kind of strength that comes from within. You don't need to explain yourself because you understand yourself. You don't need to prove anything because you are focused on growth. You don't need to respond to everything because you know what truly matters. As you continue practicing this, you will notice a shift in your life. Your mind becomes calmer. Your focus becomes sharper. You stop getting distracted by unnecessary things. You stop reacting to every opinion, every comment, every situation. And that creates space to think clearly, to grow, move forward with purpose. And in that space, you begin to realize something important. Not everything deserves your response. Not everyone deserves your explanation. And not every doubt deserves your attention. Because your energy is limited, your time is valuable, and your peace is priceless. As you go deeper into this mindset, you begin to notice something that most people never become aware of. How much of their behavior is controlled by other people. Not directly, not in an obvious way, but subtly. Through opinions, judgments, expectations, and reactions, most people don't live freely, they live in response to others. They adjust their actions based on how they think people will react. They speak based on what will be accepted. They make decisions based on how they will be perceived. And without realizing it, they lose their authenticity. This is where never respond, never justify, never prove becomes more than just a mindset. It becomes a form of independence. Because the moment you stop reacting to everything, you take back control. You are no longer living in reaction mode. You are no longer allowing external noise to dictate your internal state. Instead, you become centered. You act based on your own clarity, not on external pressure. One of the biggest challenges in this journey is dealing with people who misunderstand you. And the truth is, you will be misunderstood. No matter how clearly you speak, no matter how good your intentions are, there will always be people who interpret your actions in their own way. Some will doubt you, some will judge you, some will criticize you, and your natural instinct will be to explain yourself, to correct them, to make them see the truth. But here's the deeper reality. Not everyone wants to understand you. Some people are committed to their perception of you, and no amount of explanation will change that. So when you keep trying to explain yourself to these people, you are entering a battle you cannot win. Not because you are wrong, but because they are not open. And this is where emotional discipline becomes critical. You have to learn to let people think what they want. You have to accept that your image in someone else's mind is not something you can fully control. And once you accept that, something powerful happens. You stop chasing approval. There is a certain kind of peace that comes when you no longer feel the need to be understood by everyone. When you stop trying to control how people see you. When you accept that some people will get you and some won't. And instead of wasting energy trying to fix that, you focus on staying true to yourself. Another important aspect of this mindset is how you deal with disrespect and negativity. Many people believe that they respond to prove that they are strong, that they need to say something, react, or defend themselves to show that they are not weak. But in reality, constantly reacting to negativity is a sign of lack of control. True strength is not in reacting, it is in restraint. Because when you react emotionally to every negative comment, every insult, every criticism, you are allowing others to control your behavior. You are giving them power over your emotions. And that is exactly what you want to avoid. But when you stay calm, when you choose not to engage, when you refuse to lower yourself to that level, you maintain your power. You show that you are not easily shaken. And that kind of control is far more intimidating and powerful than any argument you could make. There is also a deeper layer to never prove that many people don't realize. The need to prove often comes from a desire to silence others, to show them that they were wrong about you, to make them regret doubting you. And while that might seem like motivation, it also keeps you emotionally tied to those people. Because now your actions are still connected to them. You are still thinking about them. You are still trying to influence their perception. And as long as you are doing that, you are not fully free. Real freedom comes when you no longer care about proving anything to anyone. When your success is not about showing others what you can do, but about becoming who you want to be. When your focus shifts from external validation to internal growth. At this stage, your mindset becomes different. You don't feel the need to explain your silence. You don't feel the need to defend your choices. You don't feel the need to respond to every situation. You become selective, intentional, and controlled. And this level of control changes how people perceive you. Not because you are trying to impress them, but because your behavior reflects strength. People notice when someone is not easily triggered. They notice when someone doesn't react emotionally. They notice when someone moves with quiet confidence. But more importantly, you notice the change within yourself. You feel lighter. less stressed, rest, more focused, more in control. Because you are no longer wasting energy on things that don't matter. You are no longer caught in unnecessary conflicts. You are no longer trying to prove your worth to people who don't see it. And in that clarity, you begin to understand something truly powerful. Your silence is not weakness. Your lack of explanation is not insecurity. Your refusal to prove yourself is not fear. Rest. It is control. It is confidence. It is power. And once you reach this level, you stop living for reactions. You start living with intention. At a certain point in this journey, something inside you begins to solidify in a way that cannot be shaken easily. It is no longer just an idea or a mindset you are trying to follow. It becomes a part of who you are. You no longer have to remind yourself to stay silent, to avoid unnecessary explanations, or to stop proving your worth. It becomes natural because through experience, through reflection, and through growth, you have seen the consequences of reacting, explaining, and proving, and you have made a decision to rise above it. You start to operate differently in real life situations. When someone questions you, you don't feel the immediate urge to defend yourself. When someone misunderstands you, you don't rush to correct them. When someone tries to provoke you, you don't react emotionally. Instead, you observe, you listen, you assess, and most importantly, you remain in control. This level of awareness creates a powerful shift because now your actions are intentional, not impulsive. In professional environments, this mindset gives you a huge advantage. While others get caught up in office politics, unnecessary arguments, and constant justification of their actions, you remain focused. You don't waste time trying to explain yourself to everyone. You let your work speak. You let your consistency speak. And over time, that creates a reputation that is far stronger than any words you could use to defend yourself. There will be moments where people try to test you. They will question your decisions. They will challenge your authority. They will attempt to pull you into arguments or emotional reactions. And in those moments, your old habits may try to come back. The urge to respond, the urge to explain, the urge to prove, it will be there. But now you have awareness, and awareness gives you a choice. You begin to realize that not every challenge is meant to be answered. Some are meant to be ignored, not because you are avoiding them, but because engaging with them would lower your level. You understand that your energy is better spent on building, growing, and improving, not on defending yourself against every opinion or criticism. This mindset also changes how you handle success. Before, you might have wanted people to notice your progress. You might have wanted recognition, validation, or approval. But now your focus shifts. You are not working to be seen, you are working to become. And that difference is powerful because it removes unnecessary pressure. You are no longer performing for others, you are evolving for yourself. There is also a deep level of emotional discipline that develops at this stage. You begin to understand your triggers, your weaknesses, and your patterns. You know what situations might push you to react. You know what kind of people might test your patience. And instead of being caught off guard, you prepare yourself mentally. You stay aware, you stay grounded. And when those moments come, you handle them with control. You also learn the art of detachment. Not emotional coldness, but controlled distance. You stop attaching your self-worth to other people's opinions. You stop letting every comment affect your mood. You stop allowing external noise to disturb your inner peace. And that detachment creates freedom. Freedom to think clearly, to act wisely, and to live without constant emotional interference. Another powerful shift happens in your communication. You speak less, but your words carry more weight. Because you are not speaking to defend yourself or to prove something. You are speaking with purpose. You choose your words carefully. You say what is necessary and nothing more. And because of that, people start to listen more closely. Your silence gives value to your words. There will still be situations where speaking is necessary, where action is required, where you need to stand your ground. But even in those moments, you are not driven by emotion. You are driven by clarity. You respond with control, not with anger. You act with purpose, not with ego. And that difference changes the outcome of those situations completely. As you continue to live this way, you begin to notice something important. Your life becomes simpler. Not because challenges disappear, but because you stop complicating them with unnecessary reactions. You stop adding emotional weight to situations that don't need it. You stop creating problems where there were none. And in that simplicity, you find clarity. In that clarity, you find focus. And in that focus, you find progress. People around you may not fully understand this change. Some may think you are distant. Some may think you don't care. Some may even try harder to get a reaction from you. But that is part of the process, because when you stop reacting, you break the patterns that people are used to, and not everyone is comfortable with that. But you are no longer living to meet their expectations. You are living to maintain your peace. And that is where true power lies, because power is not in how loudly you respond. It is in how calmly you remain silent. Power is not in how much you explain yourself. It is in how confidently you stand without explanation. Power is not in proving your worth. It is in knowing your worth without needing to prove it. And once you reach this level, you understand something deeply. You don't need to react to be strong. You don't need to explain to be understood. You don't need to prove to be valuable. You simply need to be. And in that state of being, you become unshakable. In the end, everything comes down to one realization. A realization so simple, yet so powerful, that once you truly understand it, your entire way of living begins to change. You were never meant to live your life reacting to everyone, explaining yourself to everyone, or proving your worth to everyone. That constant need to respond, justify, and prove was never strength, it was conditioning. A pattern built over time through fear, insecurity, and the desire to be accepted. But the moment you break that pattern, the moment you step out of that cycle, you begin to reclaim something that most people lose without even realizing it: your inner power. When you stop responding to everything, your mind becomes quieter. The constant noise of arguments, opinions, and unnecessary thoughts begins to fade. You no longer carry conversations in your head for hours. You no longer replay situations thinking about what you should have said or how you could respond differently. Instead, you let things pass. You observe, you understand, and then you move on. And that ability to let go quickly becomes one of your greatest strengths, because it frees your mind from unnecessary burden. When you stop justifying yourself, you step into a new level of self-respect. You no longer feel the need to explain every decision, every choice, every action. You understand that your life is yours to live, not something that needs to be approved by others. And this doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you grounded, because your decisions are no longer influenced by fear of judgment. They are guided by clarity, by values, and by purpose. And that kind of independence allows you to move forward without hesitation. When you stop trying to prove yourself, you experience a level of freedom that is difficult to describe. The pressure to impress, to convince, to show others what you are capable of, it disappears. And in its place, something far more powerful emerges: authenticity. You begin to act not for recognition, but for growth, not for approval, but for alignment. And that shift changes everything, because now your actions are truly yours. There is a deep peace that comes with this mindset, a peace that is not dependent on external circumstances. It doesn't matter what people say about you. It doesn't matter how they perceive you. It doesn't matter whether they understand you or not, because your sense of self is no longer tied to their opinions. It is built from within. And when your foundation is internal, it becomes unshakable. You also begin to see people differently. You understand that when someone criticizes you, it often reflects their own mindset. When someone tries to provoke you, it often comes from their own lack of control. When someone misunderstands you, it is often because they are seeing you through their own limited perspective. And instead of reacting to all of this, you observe it. You understand it, but you don't let it affect you. This is where emotional maturity reaches its peak, not in controlling others, but in controlling yourself, not in winning arguments, but in choosing not to engage in unnecessary ones. Not in proving your value, but in living in a way that reflects it naturally. There will still be moments when you are tested, moments when someone pushes your limits, moments when your emotions rise and the urge to respond becomes strong. But now you have something you didn't have before. You have awareness, and that awareness gives you power. It allows you to pause, to step back, to choose your response instead of reacting automatically. And every time you choose silence over reaction, every time you choose clarity over explanation, every time you choose confidence over proving, you strengthen that mindset. You reinforce that identity. You become more disciplined, more focused, more in control. At this stage, your presence itself becomes powerful. You don't need to speak loudly to be heard. You don't need to argue to be respected. You don't need to prove anything to be valued. Your actions, your consistency, and your calmness speak for you. And people begin to notice, not because you are trying to show them, but because real strength is impossible to hide. There is also a legacy in this mindset, because when you live this way, you influence others without even trying. People observe how you handle situations. They see how you remain calm where others react. They see how you move with confidence without needing validation. And that example becomes more powerful than any advice you could give. But the most important change is internal. You become free from the need to explain yourself, free from the need to defend yourself, free from the need to prove yourself. And in that freedom, you find clarity. In that clarity, you find strength. In that strength, you find control. And when you have control over yourself, you have control over your life. So from this moment forward, remember this: not everything deserves your response. Not everyone deserves your explanation. Not every doubt deserves your attention. Protect your energy, protect your peace, protect your focus. Because your power lies not in how much you say, but in what you choose to ignore. Your power lies not in proving your worth, but in knowing it without question. And your power lies not in reacting to the world, but in mastering yourself within it. That is the true meaning of never respond, never justify, never prove.